Hi, everyone. My name is Lauren Doherty. I am an editor-in-chief with the New Canaan High School Courant, and I am hosting these Behind the Cover podcasts. We're talking with local EICs in Fairfield County about their experience as a student journalist. So today I'm joined by the Fairfield Ludlowe High School prospect.
Hi, I'm Imogen. I'm one of the EICs of the NCHS Courant, and I'm excited to talk to you guys.
Hi, everyone. My name is Harper Treschuk. I'm the editor-in-chief for the FLHS prospect at Ludlowe High School in Fairfield. I'm a senior, and this is my 4th year on the student paper. Looking forward to the conversation today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aniket Martins. I'm the editor of the opinions column of the prospect over at Ludlowe. I'm a junior, and this is my 2nd year on the paper, and yeah, super excited for the conversation.
Awesome. So first off, in past podcasts, we've had the experience to talk to Greenwich, Darien, and Imogen. Do you remember who the other one was? I'm so sorry for forgetting.
I know it was Greenwich and Darien was the last two.
Yes. Besides the point, I apologize to who that is, but we've had some really great conversations, and something that stood out to us is how not all of the papers are like a class course. Some of them are after school clubs or extracurricular activities. So how was that done at Ludlowe?
Yeah, so at Ludlowe, there is a journalism class. However, taking that class is not required as a prerequisite for joining the paper. We're run pretty much as a student club. We meet during school when our school has the activity periods. And we also have some after school meetings as an additional opportunity for students to brainstorm together and pitch ideas to the editors. But it is more of an after school extracurricular. Aniket, feel free to add.
Yep, definitely agree. It's mostly run as a club after school, but we get a lot of good contributions from the journalism classes, especially I think towards the end of the semester, they have to write, a full-fledged article as part of their class, and we end up publishing quite a few of those articles to the paper.
Interesting. And Imogen, feel free to add on to this, but at New Canaan High School, we have 3 levels of journalism classes, journalism 1, 2, and 3, and the Courant is directly affiliated for that. So as editors-in-chief, we're considered in journalism 3, our 3rd year in the class, and that goes directly to our website and our print paper. So. All right, so next off, do you guys distribute both digitally and with literal papers? How does that work?
At the moment, we only have a digital website. Prior to freshman year, before I even joined the paper, we had print issues, but then we switched entirely to our digital platform. I think the digital platform has actually been very beneficial during COVID-19 because we did not have to make the sudden shift when it became more difficult to conduct in-person reporting and have in-person journalism meetings. So I think that has been an asset. Aniket, feel free to add.
Yeah, definitely. So I heard legends about the paper prospect, but we've been online since I was in high school.
Cool. We just came out with our 2nd print copy today, actually. We try and produce like 1 a month is our goal. It really turns into like 1 every 2 months. But we also run a website, which all the articles that are printed are also posted on our website. And we try to incorporate our website into our print paper. Like we'll do QR codes that people can scan and get directly to the website as well. And we found that to be pretty successful. How do you see like journalism kind of evolving into the digital age and social media, particularly at the high school level?
During the pandemic, we oftentimes, when we went into that shift, we had to really adjust and update our website because it was quite like a drastic shift. Obviously, we were having to work fully remote. And currently we usually have like 1 to 2 of our EICs manage the web page stories. And that's been kind of like a little bit chaotic, but we were wondering like how you guys usually do. You have like multiple people managing the website and publishing stories, or is it just like one person, or like how do you guys do that?
We typically have many people publishing onto the website. So it's all the editors who have access to the logins. And when a staff writer writes a paper or another editor writes a paper after it's finished going through its drafts, then the editors publish it to the website. And regarding your previous question about how journalism is expanding into the digital age in high school, I think one thing we learned during COVID was advertising the paper was much harder when we didn't have school and in person. So we weren't putting up posters around the school. So we made an Instagram account and we had to publicize a lot through that. So that was one significant change that we saw.
Cool. One thing, when we were talking with Darien, we actually ended up getting their paper involved with this, but at the Courant, we have each reporter make a Twitter account, and their Twitter account will just be like their first initial, their last name, Courant. So mine is at Doherty Courant, and we repost all our stories on the website there, and we'll like tweet pictures during class and all this stuff. But it's a really fun way to get even teachers and the administrators and students as well involved in seeing what's going on. So I definitely recommend that.
Yeah, and also I feel like we need to give a quick shout out to Lauren's TikTok that she started. So we also kind of expanded from, we have Instagram, we cover Twitter, and then we recently started TikTok, which honestly has been kind of a hit. We're just trying to like expand digitally, getting like the word out about our paper, because before obviously we would go around town as well and like distribute around like the local restaurants and the local shops, and then obviously in school. But when we did switch to remote like last year, we definitely tried to expand like the digital platform as well.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys are Taylor Swift fans, but we made a TikTok about like Jake Gyllenhaal and like Drew Oliver's thing and wrote All Too Well, which is Taylor Swift's song. And then I made a TikTok all about it and we got 500 likes. So like I'm considering myself TikTok famous. Thank you.
Congratulations. That's celebrity status.
That's what I was trying to tell my teacher. Thank you very much. I definitely recommend it. It's fun too.
And I think regarding your comments on how journalism is evolving in today's digital landscape, another thing that we initiated last year was live reporting, these live update streams during the 2020 and then 2021 election cycles. And I think that was a really neat way to be reporting as things were happening. And I think the digital platforms are perfect conduit for that, because you can publish things more quickly. And of course we have this new responsibility in the digital age to be really stringent about our fact checking and the verification of what we're reporting, because information is truly proliferating, but misinformation is also proliferating. So I think the digital age comes with these unique opportunities and responsibilities as well.
And just expanding upon that, how do you kind of define what are your responsibilities and your expectations for reliability and fact checking and all of that as a high school journalist?
Do you want to answer first, Aniket?
Yeah, so I've noticed this particularly much in the opinions column. People tend to bend truths and stretch reality a little bit. So there's a threshold that I accept, but once something is pretty blatantly wrong, the opinion could be whatever it is, but when facts are objectively incorrect, it becomes, I would have to have a word with the writer and just let them know to change something up or change up the wording. But in general, people have been very responsible about decent journalism and keeping things truthful.
I think that verification is really important, and making sure that facts are not bent and skewed. I think reliability of sources is also really essential. So what we have our staff writers do is to hyperlink or link all of the sources that they have consulted throughout the writing process. And then if our editors have questions about a specific online source, in addition to any like in-person sources they may have compiled, such as interviews, then we have a conversation with the staff writer. And another thing, I think this sometimes seems like very small in comparison to the larger issue of fact checking verification, but I think maintaining a consistent style is important. because it does add ethos and weight to what you are saying. It's those little touches that sometimes can make a big difference. So what we've tried to maintain over the past few years is consistent style guidelines. We consult the AP style manual. And I think that's important to have that consistency and continuity in reporting.
And I know Harper isn't going to say this, but I am. And Harper has done an exceptional job of providing our staff writers and even the editors so many resources. She's had videos, there have been posters, there have been Google Docs, and everything. It allows for uniformity and professionalism while individual writers can still shine. So Harper, I know you wouldn't toot your own horn, so I had to for you.
Yeah, and I have a question particularly pertaining to the opinion section about that. What kind of stuff have you written about and posted? Like, do you expand beyond school and write about modern day political controversies or that kind of stuff?
Absolutely. We've had a host of articles written, everything from the school's HVAC and air conditioning system to, surprisingly, Taylor Swift's new album and the 2020 election. There's a broad scope of opinions pieces, and it's a pleasure to read all of them. And it's fascinating to see how opinionated people are on things that are seemingly so distant from the school population.
I actually like going off of that, especially in the opinion section. Have you or any of your reporters ever faced any pushback from the high school trying to filter or like lessen your opinions or any way, or just push back from that?
We, at least in the 2 years that I've been on opinions, we haven't had any significant issues, but in conversation with our teacher advisor, there are limits that are established that are made very clear to the writer, so they can't defame anyone, even if it's political. You know, they try to maintain a veneer of respect. And Harper's guides and Miss Marcello, who's our awesome advisor at school, they've been very clear about that, and the writers have responded well to that as well.
Mm-hmm. Something I talked about with one of the schools on the other Zoom records I did was this idea that it's kind of easier to write an opinion about something that's going on at the school than something that's happening on a world or a nation level scale. Like, it might be a lot easier to write about the air conditioning systems than it would be to express your opinion on like new abortion laws or something like that. How have you kind of seen that go down at your own paper?
There's been many pieces. So we're touching on all the topics right now. There was a piece I read about abortion a couple weeks ago. People have been quite good at expressing their opinions coherently, and at times I've had to change around the language slightly so that it comes off as a little less brazen and more thought through. But in general, our staff writers are excellent at expressing their opinions well across all topics. You know, everything from gym classes and the library to abortion, the elections, Taylor Swift's new album, and the music industry.
Cool. Yeah, I know, Imogen, you wrote that piece for us about abortions with the help of some of our other classmates, and we ended up having to change it a little bit, I believe, correct? Like from the opinion section to the news section, actually.
Yeah, we started the abortion piece as an opinions piece. The tricky thing with that story was there were several editors who were contributing to that story. And I think something that we learned, especially in opinions, is it's a lot easier for just one person to write the opinions piece, because if you have multiple people, then, you know, not everyone agrees exactly on the wording, even if you share the same common idea. So we did have to change that to news, still having a slight bias, but mainly just reporting the facts. I was wondering, like, if any of you guys have like a favorite piece that you have written, especially, I'd be interested to hear.
I think my favorite piece that I've written would also be the most difficult piece that I wrote. And that was last year in March, I believe. Our school had a mental health assembly. And I felt compelled, after listening to all the junior class, like share these raw and honest emotions about how they were feeling during this time. I felt compelled to write an opinion on the event. And even though you were saying, Lauren, that it's often easier to write an opinion centered on the school and the local community rather than these broad and complex national issues, I think there still was a lot of complexity at play. in terms of mental health at the school, because the administration was trying to balance the need to keep students on track and meet these curriculum standards and maintain some semblance of normalcy, while students were also struggling with social, emotional issues and grief. And I think just navigating all those different stakeholders and voices was difficult, but I think it also gave me clarity on the importance of student journalism, that I was able to amplify what students were saying and what they were feeling. And the article ended up being viewed by a lot of faculty members. And so I was pleased that the article brought the issue to the attention of the faculty to promote more of this dialogue and conversation about such an important issue.
I definitely, when I read that article, it was quite impactful, and the topics that it addressed are so pertinent to the feelings that were circulating the school last year. It was a great read, but I would say that my favorite article to write was in about September last year. We wrote an article, Advice to Freshman Falcons, especially because our freshmen were entering high school in this sort of weird 3 days online and 2 days in person, and half of the school is in person, and every other week it's rotating, and Wednesdays are shortened now. So it was definitely a strange time to enter high school, and it was a pleasure to work with a lot of writers to compile our advice to the freshmen and talk to them after that to see how it went for them.
Yeah, I have to echo your idea, Harper, that the favorite story I ever wrote was also the most difficult that I ever wrote. At the Courant, we were fortunate enough to do a lot of Black Lives Matter coverage. We had a protest in town that we were able to live stream and take photos of and write a lot of articles on. And about a year after that all happened, I wrote an article called Black Lives Matter 1 year later, in which I kind of reflected on like my position as a student journalist, particularly a white student in a really affluent town, and how, while that put me in such a difficult position and sensitivities to my writing and being delicate with my voice, it also kind of gave me the unique opportunity to amplify those voices and show how like Black Lives Matter really was being like, I don't know, they were really being supported by New Canaan High School and by the New Canaan High School community, by students coming out to these protests and students signing petitions and donating and really using their power, which they might not have had a lot of at 16 or 17 years old, but just they were really doing their best and showing that students cared. And I thought that was really important for me. Imogen, I know you have a favorite.
I think probably my favorite, I haven't given it too much thought, but I think probably during the pandemic, I had kind of a unique opportunity working as an EMT on the front lines during COVID. And as a result, I missed pretty much all of school. I was fully remote the entire time because I kept encountering patients with COVID. And I remember reaching out to local doctors. I basically wrote stories as the pandemic progressed. These hospital janitors, doctors, nurses, ED techs, everyone who was involved, I tried to cover as it progressed all the way until the first waves of the vaccine. And then again, encouraging get vaccinated. I don't know if I'll cut out a little bit, but sorry about that.
All good. So just as a little wrap-up question, whether or not you're interested in pursuing journalism in the future in college as a career path, there's a lot of arguments out there that journalism is a dying industry, that papers is dead, no one reads anymore. Do you agree with this statement? And where do you think the future of journalism lies?
I think that's an interesting question, very provocative. And I think it depends on how you define journalism. If you define journalism in the traditional sense as a press room that is churning out print editions. I think that aspect of journalism is unfortunately a dying industry. But I think at the same time, even as you have this movement of journalism online, these trends of consolidation, as a lot of like smaller local papers are getting bought out by national news outlets, you also have this movement of journalism becoming more expansive, expanding onto new media platforms, like you were mentioning throughout our conversation, using Twitter, different types of social media, blogging, videos. And you also have citizens redefining journalism as well. It's been interesting to view a lot of the cases that have been tried over the past year and a half, and a lot of them have come because citizens recorded video evidence of crimes that were being committed, and that evidence has been used in court. It has spurred social movements, and I would argue that that is also journalism. So I think it really comes back to whether you define journalism in a broad sense or a narrow sense. But I think the need for honest and factual reporting will not go away. Just how we interact with journalism and how we define journalism may change.
I wholly agree with a lot of the sentiments that Harper expressed there. I think the need for honest and factual reporting, that's something that is not dying at all. It's increasing a lot, especially as we see the spread of misinformation online, because social media is a double-edged sword. It can be used to distribute so much good, but so much harm can also come of it. And there's going to be a perpetual need for people to deliver information to the majority of citizens, in politics, in matters of their day-to-day lives, in whatever they may be doing, any, spheres that they're interacting with. There's always going to be need for people to communicate information most effectively. And one of the things that comes to my mind is the role of journalism keeping our politicians accountable to each other and to the public, because if all of a sudden there's no journalists in the White House press room, who's gonna enforce accountability with the president? Or it doesn't even have to be the president. Any politicians, senators, House reps, even at the local level, they're answerable to the press, and which is our way, the citizens' way of expressing our voice to them. And that has been increasingly important, especially with COVID and national security and whatnot. So I'd love to see that expand more in the future, especially with factual reporting.
Yeah, I think just to add on, I think you guys mainly covered it, but I think journalism is definitely changing platforms, especially moving more digitally. And I think the importance of journalism bringing people together, whether it's in a time of crisis or in a time of joy and celebration, it's always going to be there to just share the truth and bring people together.
Yeah, that's good to hear, because to be honest, I've heard almost the same answers from every other student publication I've talked to, which, it gives a hope to the future of journalism. And I think everyone is excited to see where the future lies. All right, so that's going to wrap us up. So thank you so much for talking to me. This has been absolutely fantastic.